Welcome to 'Cause We're Nerds, the podcast that covers trends and new releases in comics, movies, video games, board games, and much more. I'm your host, Caleb, and with me is my cousin, Zach.
I am here.
And surprise, my wife, Courtney.
Hey, everyone.
Today, we're talking Captain Marvel. How does the MCU's first female-led movie fare? Does the 90s setting work? And how will the Captain herself fit into Avengers Endgame? Find out on this week's episode of 'Cause We're Nerds.
And surprise, my wife is out of the country. She just left.
Hey, Zach.
How's it going, Courtney?
It's going good. I'm sorry you're sick.
I see you. It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, if viewers out there hear me coughing, it's because I'm literally dying.
Yeah, but you know,
not actually. I'm just cold. So
you're just cold.
I'm just cold. That's it. If I turn my temp up a few degrees, I'll be fine.
Yeah, it's probably all that snow up there in Hoth, right?
I was gonna say, but actually though, hashtag living in Hoth, it continues. So this past weekend, it was projected we were gonna get 8 to 12 inches of snow.
Nope.
I think we got 8 to 12 inches of rain.
yeah.
For
Thankfully,
real.
half of that turned into rain here because it started warming up, but the other half was still snow. So that was fun.
Oh boy, man. Well, that doesn't sound like a great time.
You know what? It's hopefully Snowmageddon is over and we can evacuate the rebel base and get to a better place.
So, Courtney had this idea. She wanted to be on the show this week. And unless I'm mistaken, is this the first show both of you have been on together?
Yes.
That is correct. Courtney, I love that idea. We are talking about a movie with a powerful woman. And in our midst, Caleb, we have a very powerful woman.
Aw, thanks.
He's talking about Captain Marvel.
Fine, that's cool too.
And Courtney, hello. Yes, Captain Marvel. As far as this movie goes for me, the eye has been cast.
Not that again.
It's returning, baby. It's back.
For those of you that don't know, when we were doing our Road to Infinity War series, Zach constantly made these terrible jokes about Nick Fury's eye. That might or might not play into this movie.
That's right. The last time I lost an eye, I trusted someone. Or no, the last time I trusted someone, I lost an eye. Will we get answers to that? Maybe. Are we doing a spoiler-free and then a spoiler?
That is correct. So just like we always do, we are going to do a spoiler-free section first, and then we will clearly tell you when we're jumping into spoilers, and we'll go into that at that point. But starting out, no spoilers.
Got it.
All right.
I got it. I get a laugh from Courtney, so
That's not too hard.
that wasn't a pity chuckle. That was a laugh.
Well, like I said, not too hard. All right. So how much do you two know about Captain Marvel in general?
I know a little bit. I've read some of her comics.
Okay.
I know her enemy tends to be the Skrulls. And she's a Kree warrior, half human, half Kree, or well, half, whatever. And has her superpowers. She's best friends with Spider-Woman, which is my favorite superhero.
Okay.
That's what I got for you.
Yeah, that pretty much sums up what I have. You know, as comic related, I've probably just followed her mostly in Civil War 2. Don't read it. It was a terrible run. But it pitted Tony and Captain Marvel against each other. And then probably the most recent iteration would be the relaunch of the Avengers comics in 2016, the new Avengers team. And it has, the original trilogy. So Captain Marvel, Iron Man, Thor, a bunch of others. And then Captain Marvel is on it as well. So that's probably as much as I know, but I'd love to hear her backstory.
Okay. So I personally don't know much about her from reading comics. Of course, I did some research, and her backstory is like literally the most complicated backstory of anything I've ever tried to read.
Is part of her backstory, was it she was a man, right? Because it was Marvel, and then they transition Marvel into a woman, or no? Am I incorrect on this?
Yeah. So part of the reason it's so confusing is because next month we're going to be getting a movie called Shazam from DC.
No, it's like Avengers Endgame, obviously.
Right. But Shazam, actually, for most of his history, has actually been called Captain Marvel. And there was legal battles between Marvel and DC over that. And that's part of why it's so complicated. The other reason it's so complicated is that she's gone through many different iterations. Originally, Carol Danvers was just a regular person working at a military base, an Air Force base, with a guy who was secretly Mar-Vell, then Captain Marvel. He was the Kree warrior that she basically ends up taking the place of. Is that a phone ringing in your background?
It is. There's nothing I can do about it.
How unprofessional.
I've died.
So basically, while she's working at this Air Force with this guy, a bomb goes off on something they're trying to build, and he jumps in front of her to save her. And the rays that come out of this bomb, because it's like an alien sort of device, it kind of goes through Mar-Vell and into her, and it merges their physiology. So she becomes half Kree, half human at that point. And that's when she takes the mantle Miss Marvel, which is actually the name she's most closely associated with, because she didn't change her name to Captain Marvel until 2012.
But there's some other Miss Marvels as well? Because doesn't she have the power of, like, it's she almost the Reed Richards? She can, like...
You're talking about Kamala Khan.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So the confusing thing about all this is anytime either a Captain Marvel or a Miss Marvel dies, leaves, moves on to a different name,
which happens a lot in the comics,
which happens a ton, someone else steps in to take their place. So there's also been several Captain Marvels. There's been several Miss Marvels. Currently, Carol Danvers, who was the original Miss Marvel, is now Captain Marvel, and Kamala Khan has stepped up to take the role of Miss Marvel now. So that is a incredibly abbreviated version of her history. If you want more information, you're going to have to go dig it out. It could be an entire book. Like, this stuff was really complicated. It involved a lot of things being published and then not being published and then being published again just so Marvel could keep the trademark.
Nice.
Very complicated stuff. But that's the base level. That's even more than you really need to know coming into this movie. Coming into this movie, you really don't need to know anything.
Literally anything at all. I never went to school.
Which, isn't it crazy that we're getting two movies on the two different Captain Marvels in 2019? DC's and Marvel's? You don't
no
think
one cares about Shazam.
People care about Shazam.
I mean,
he's
getting
Courtney.
good reviews, but I don't really care about him. I'm not here to talk about him.
You guys are lame.
Caleb, that means that you're the lame one, and that Courtney and I are right, because we outvote you. Psst. We're a democracy, not a republic.
Okay.
Again, remember, you don't have to really know anything going into this movie.
So, talking about this movie had a fairly short development time, actually, compared to a lot of the other movies we've talked about. Most of those other ones go back to the 90s, Iron Man and stuff like that, where they were trying to get them off the ground. This one, actually, really only goes back to about 2013, 2012 or so, where Marvel actually has a program, or had, I'm not sure if they still have it, where they hired, or actually, I'm not even sure if they hired them. Writers could write scripts and send them in. It was like part of their writers program.
Oh, cool.
And I don't know for sure if Marvel, like, pays them to do that, or if it's more of, do it, send it in. If we like it, we'll pay you. But this script was written as part of that program, and it was finished by 2013. So around then was kind of when they were like, okay, we're going to make this movie, but it wasn't actually announced until October of 2014, when Marvel did their whole, this is what we're going to do for the next 3 years, phase 3 announcement thing that we've talked about a couple times before. When they did that, this movie actually had a release date of July 2018. Obviously, that didn't end up happening, and that's because between when they announced it and that date, Marvel got the rights back for Spider-Man, or at least they're sharing them, which basically pushed everything after the Spider-Man release date forward. It
Sure.
happened to Black Panther. It happened to this movie. So it ended up landing on a March 8th, 2019 release date, which is what we got.
Which
But-
is International Women's Day. Just throwing
Yes,
that out
it
there.
was. Do you know that, Zach?
I did because I had to work that Friday, and it was a father-son camping. So I thought it was very ironic that the father-son camping was on International Women's Day.
That's super funny. Captain Marvel, rather, actually wasn't supposed to appear in this movie as her first appearance. She was originally going to appear at the end of Age of Ultron. If you guys remember, at the end of Age of Ultron, they've got the new Avengers team standing there with Falcon and War Machine and all of them. She was in the original script to actually be there in that scene. Josh Whedon wrote her into it. But Kevin Feige kind of said, we don't just want to introduce her here without anybody knowing what's going on, which
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense.
And then not appear, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that'd be a little weird.
Yeah.
Although we will get into this later, but that would fit really well in some of the stuff that happened in Age of Ultron.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
I don't, so I'm curious.
You smelling what I'm pooping?
Come on, Zach.
Not cool.
You didn't want me to use an eye analogy, so I tried to. Oh, fine.
I don't
We'll
want-
stick to
I'll
the
leave.
eyes.
Go back to the eye.
Go back to the eye.
I can't stand what you're putting down.
You have just entered into the eye of the storm.
I quit. Okay.
With my puns, I should quit as well.
Right. No, you can stay. So she ended up getting taken out, and that's probably for the best. Brie Larson herself actually was cast a pretty long time ago. She was cast in 2016, which, if I'm thinking through the list of all the actors, I think that's the earliest anyone has been cast for a Marvel movie before the movie came out.
I can't think of it.
Because that's 3 years.
Yeah.
Like that's a long time for just
Yeah, that
kind of
is.
be sitting on this. And then they did announce the directors a year later in 2017, who are Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck. Do either of you guys know these people?
No.
I do not.
Okay. I do not either.
Nice.
I do know that they're a directing duo. They always work together. And this is their first big thing. They haven't had too many other things. So that's that, I guess.
But that fits Marvel's narrative of taking directors who are maybe not as well known,
Yeah.
especially for their origin stories.
Mm-hmm.
I just had a mini freak out where I thought I forgot to hit record. I had to look over. I hit record. We're good.
No.
We're good. Okay. Let's talk about the cast. This cast has a lot of new people, some of which have some twists and turns. So I don't want to say who all of them are. But we get Jude Law here as part of the Star Force Command people.
Mm-hmm.
We have Lashana Lynch, who plays Maria Rambeau. Annette Bening, who plays Dr. Wendy Lawson. And Ben Mendelsohn as Talos, one of the Skrulls. And of course, we have actually a host of returning characters, most of which long dead, actually. The last time we saw them, they were dead. Coulson, Ronan, and Korath all return from the dead to be here, and we get our first young Nick Fury here as well. There's a lot of silence in this episode.
I think that's because Courtney's like, we're not sure who should talk first. Should I talk first? Should she
That's
talk
fair.
first? Okay,
Wait,
so
do I talk first? Do you talk first? Who talks first?
So Lee Pace.
That was a Star Wars reference.
I got you.
It was a Star Wars reference.
Hello there.
Go
It's
ahead,
another Star
Zach.
Wars reference. So Lee Pace is back, reprising his role as Ronan the Accuser. If I remember right from our Guardians podcast, I thought he hated it. He hated Marvel. It did not go down well.
He hated Marvel.
Thought it was just bad.
Yeah, he hated the Kree Empire. So something between now and then causes him to basically denounce the Empire, I guess.
Yeah, he goes to the extreme.
No. Not Ronan, the actor Lee Pace.
Like, he didn't want to work for Marvel.
Yeah, like, I thought, remember, like, there was a lot of cut scenes with him about his backstory.
No,
he wasn't very happy.
No, you're thinking of
no, I'm
Christopher
thinking
Eccleston from Thor.
Yes.
Yeah, Malekith.
All right. Caleb's going to edit this whole conversation.
Nope, I'm leaving it in. This is going at the front.
Caleb doesn't even edit anymore. He's just like, good enough. There's some coughs. There's a phone ringing. Whatever.
You're not completely wrong. I was super happy to see the returning characters, because Coulson especially, I mean, he was a really big character who was killed off in Avengers and then, of course, went on to TV stuff. But for most people, he's just been dead. And he hasn't felt as big since the Avengers because he hasn't been around. But it's a nice touch to see him returning here.
It was a nice nod. I liked how he was in it. He wasn't in it for a long time, but he was in it.
Yeah.
For a short time.
I will say is interesting with all these characters. None of them have a ton of screen time. So it is interesting that they decided to bring them back at all.
Yeah,
Nick
that's
Fury
fair.
has a lot of time. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes. Yes, that's...
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I yes.
All right. Courtney, do you have anything else before we jump into the movie itself?
No.
All right.
Then let's jump into it.
So,
first question.
Uh-oh.
Caleb.
I didn't
Courtney.
study.
What? Did you just say women study?
I said I didn't study.
Did either of you shed a tear at the beginning?
Oh, okay. So I actually don't want to spoil what this is.
There's at the beginning, we'll just say there's a tribute.
Yeah, there is a tribute. We can talk about it a little bit more in spoilers.
Okay.
I don't want to tell people exactly what it is, but as most of you have heard, there's a small tribute to Stan at the beginning.
You know, I'll say this movie, as we're jumping into the spoiler-free, I feel like will have to be sort of short. This movie, what caught me off guard, which I actually enjoyed, is this movie has a lot of turns. Some small ones that are just like, oh, that's interesting. Some surprises, like at the beginning, that's like, oh, okay, that's really cool. And then some big ones that you just don't see coming. So I really enjoyed that about this movie, but it also makes it, I feel like it makes it rather hard to talk about it in a spoiler-free review.
Yeah. The story, definitely, it's hard to talk about.
Story-wise, yes.
But there's some things we can talk about, like the de-aging. Nick Fury and Coulson both had de-aging. What'd you guys think of that?
It was really good. I hate spoilers, or spoiler-free sections. I feel limited, but
then let's just jump into it. She dies. Nick Fury dies. Coulson dies, comes back to life, and then dies again in the Avengers.
Dun, dun, dun. No, Nick Fury looked really good for being in such a big part of the movie. I guess I'm allowed to say that.
Mm-hmm.
For them to maintain that look was really good.
Yeah, I would agree. I thought Nick Fury, excellent. Coulson, a little off. I will say, as far as CGI goes too, Lee Pace, they look like they did some de-aging on him, or at least something different for his costume, because he did look a lot younger than what we see in Guardians. And honestly, I thought it was just a different actor. I thought it was recast. So that was interesting on my end. And I mean, as far as CGI goes, I guess overall in this movie, I thought they did a pretty good job. There were only a few parts that I'm like, oof. One of those parts was when Captain Marvel is communing with the Supreme Intelligence. Right. It's pretty much in the beginning, like in the first 10 minutes. You see these like wires, or I don't even know what they are, like come up to her face. And it was like, to me, that looked like super CGI. I kind of flinched to my seat. I'm like, ugh.
Oh, really? I thought they looked fine.
It was just that one shot. Everything else looked fine.
Okay.
But for some reason, that one shot, it might have been the screen I was looking at, just jumped out.
Did you see, we didn't talk about how we saw this movie.
We saw this movie in the exact same spot we saw Avengers with you two.
Aw.
Same seats, same theater, same screen, except my mom didn't get lost this time.
Well,
So
that's
it was great.
That's a funny story. So, sidebar for just a moment. So Courtney and I fly all the way up to Minnesota from Georgia to meet with Zach so that we can see Infinity War together. Because, it's a big deal. We've been doing the podcast. Plus, it's just a thing. Courtney set the whole thing up. She's great. She's staring at me saying she wants the credit. So she has the credit for this.
Give credit
She
where
does.
credit's due,
She
man.
does. It was all Courtney.
But we eat before we go to the movie, and there's like 4 different cars that people came in because people came from work. And Zach's mom, my aunt, was like, "Oh, do you guys want to ride with me?" And I was like, "Okay, I guess she wants us to ride with her. We'll ride with her." And we get in the car, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I know where this theater is, no problem." And then she gets lost.
And we had 20 minutes, I think, to get to the theater.
Yeah,
so it was like that far, and the theater's 5 minutes away. So everybody arrives. We get there, and we're just like we left some time for refreshments because you have to when you're in a movie theater. And so we do that, and then everybody's just waiting, and we're like, "Where the heck is my mom and Caleb and Courtney?" Unbeknownst to us, my mom, we grew up in this area. We lived there for half of our lives. Didn't remember where the theater was and started driving around randomly as Caleb and Courtney are trying not to lose their eyes. Going insane.
I was kind of freaking out.
Oh, he was freaking out. He was like, "What's the name of the theater? I'm going to look it up."
Yeah. So her argument was that everything had changed since she'd lived there, but I'm like, it's a theater. We got to get there. We showed up, I think, 5 minutes before it started.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank goodness we had reserved seats.
Yes. Oh, for sure. Yeah. So everything turned out fine. We watched the movie, but alas, if you're trying to get to a movie in time, don't ride with Deanna Gosha. That's all I have to say about that.
We love you, Auntie Anna.
But she's awesome. By the way, Caleb, I saw your mom last weekend.
Yeah, she appeared.
But no, actually, I saw her last weekend.
Yeah, she appeared in our Instagram feeds. I'm like, wait a minute, she went to Minnesota?
Yes, I forgot I was going to open with that. Shoot! Let's re-record the last 20 minutes. I thought about this last week. I'm like, dang, I'm going to open with this. And then you threw Courtney in here, which Courtney, love that you're on the podcast, but that threw me for a loop. And then I'm like, oh, man. And then I was thinking about eyes. I'm sick. Okay, guys, my head, I can't even think about stuff right now. It's not good.
We sat down, and you got on, and Courtney was like, "Don't tell him that I'm on here. I want to surprise him."
It was a good surprise. You're like, and I'm like, and what? So that was good. Yes, your mom got experience living in Hoth. It was great. Your mom's great. Love
I think
you,
she's
Darcy.
pretty great.
So, anyways, how'd you guys see the movie?
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's what we were talking about. Courtney, would you like to answer?
We saw it in an IMAX theater at an AMC.
Yep. Was yours in 3D?
Which makes sense because you have the AMC pass. It was not, but it was the Dolby sound and an XDX screen, which is like a bigger screen that's curved a little.
Mm-hmm.
So that all the things.
I actually didn't think that this was released in 3D, but apparently it was.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah. Who knew? Yeah. So back to the de-aging. I thought the de-aging and the CGI generally was all really good. There are a couple shots of Coulson that I will totally agree with you, Zach, looked off.
Shiny.
I think there's a story reason, and we might talk about that in spoilers. But at the very least, they could have given him some more hair. I mean, I think they gave him a little bit more, but it felt like it was still receded too much.
Maybe that's what he looked like in the 90s.
No, he didn't, because I looked it up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
As someone whose hair is receding at a very quick pace, I thought it was fine.
If you look up, because he's been acting since the 90s, if you look up what he looked like then, normally when they do these de-agings, they refer back to stuff that person's been in, and they try to make it as close as possible. So that's what I was expecting, but that's just not what I got.
Okay, that makes sense.
All right. The scrolls. We'll probably talk about them more in depth in spoilers, but what did you think of the transformation effects of just their general design, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I thought it looked good. I caught myself thinking about this during the movie, that for the movie, I thought the scrolls, they did a great job. I don't think, how do I put this? It's reading it in a comic doesn't necessarily, I think, translate the best to large screen.
Mm-hmm.
But all in all, like from what they had to do to cosmetics to everything, I thought it was fine. It's just like, you know, it's your imagining. I always imagine they talked a little different. That translation wise, I just didn't think it worked out amazingly well. But I thought it was fine for the movie. Courtney, what did you think?
I thought they looked really good. I hadn't had too much experience with the Skrulls outside of comics, so I agree. It's kind of hard sometimes to translate comic to movie, but I feel like they did a really great job.
Something I actually had an issue with the Skrulls is Ben Mendelsohn is I don't know if he's Welsh or if he's Scott. He's from somewhere and he's got an accent, and that accent comes through when he's playing Talos, and a lot of the other Skrulls don't have that accent. And it was really strange to me at first, because I've always envisioned them all as having the same accent. But I guess if the Empire is as big as this movie portrays, it would make sense. It would be just like humans, how we've all got different accents, and we're only on one planet, let alone an entire space empire.
True. And again, that's kind of like part of what I think translates well is like, yeah, they each had their obviously unique voices and stuff like that. But in my mind, it was all like this, you know, it was like they all kind of sounded the same. They sounded similar.
Right.
Until they transformed. Like obviously some variation, but it was pretty much static.
Right. Okay. Action scenes. I don't know. The action scenes in this movie are a bit all over the place for me. Some of them I think are really good. Some of them I think they're shot very strangely and they could be better, but generally they're decent.
Yeah, I was listening to something today and they were talking about how it doesn't really have a defining action scene.
Yeah.
Like every Marvel movie has that like defining action scene, that moment. But Captain Marvel doesn't really. They've got several little ones, a bunch of things happening throughout it, but I don't know if you're going there for the action, but maybe you are.
No, I'd agree with you, Courtney. I mean, I think the one they try to make the action scenes that I'm just a girl. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Towards the end?
Yes.
Okay.
When that song plays, like it's a great song, it's a great action scene. But I think that was like her action scene, and it was I thought that was the best action scene by far in the movie. But yeah, I would agree. There wasn't really anyone that like. Yes. Yes.
It's funny you bring that up because I thought that music was very misplaced.
I did too. It caught me off guard. I'm like, oh, this is odd. It's okay. Music in this film. I thought they had a shot at bringing back a bunch of these 90s tunes like Guardians of the Galaxy did and just making this awesome mix, you know, of like 90s music.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of did some of it and then they didn't. And I know a lot of the hype is that this was also composed by a female composer. And how do I say that? The music, I mean, it's fine. It's good. It's like she did a good job on the music, but it just sounded kind of like the Avengers theme. And to me, it didn't sound very unique. I just thought the movie, it would have played really well if they had just they did Guardians of the Galaxy, selected like 12 90s songs and used those songs. I thought would have been like really unique.
Yeah, that's fair. I can kind of agree with that. Traditionally, the music really has to stand out for me to pay attention to it in a movie. I kind of more just like it's there and I might notice it, I might not. So it didn't do anything for me, but I also didn't hate it either. So
yeah, that's kind of, oh, there's a dog too.
You have a dog?
No, I'm house sitting. Just a second.
So
Doge, none of that stuff.
It's all right. We can christen him Podcast Dog. like another famous podcast I was going to
say like another. Should we just give him a little mic? Give him a little.
Yeah, the same thing with me with the music is I didn't really notice it except for that one scene because it felt forced. It felt out of place, like they were trying to go for an effect and it just wasn't working. But overall, yeah, music average. None of these Marvel movies generally have great music except for Guardians. I don't know if I would have wanted them though to do a whole bunch of 90s songs. I feel like that's kind of Guardians' thing, and for this to do it, I don't know about that.
That's fair.
What else? What else can we talk about?
Well, I was gonna say I think that translates in my mind really well too. So Brie Larson as Captain Marvel. I don't know what I was. So reading comics, I always thought that Captain Marvel, at least this iteration, her personality was more of Captain America.
Okay.
And I'm going to put this on a spectrum: Captain America versus Tony Stark. I thought it was more Captain America.
Mm-hmm.
This iteration of Captain Marvel is very much basic. I would say like almost Tony Stark levels, like not quite, but pretty close to there.
Okay,
Would
so
you
Courtney, Courtney, having read the comics, how does this? Well, some of them.
Mm-hmm.
How does this align with what you know about the character?
So I would put her closer to Captain America in the comics as far as stuff like that. Like if you compare her to Spider-Woman, Spider-Woman is more that Tony Stark, like, I don't give a crap, I'm gonna kick butt, and I'm awesome. Captain Marvel has some of those traits, but not as much. She seems to be more, like, push for moral, and, like, the general good and help of others. But that's kind of how she's portrayed in the comics, at least from what I've read. I think in the movie, I kind of see why you say Tony Stark, but I think she's a good balance between the two.
I kind of agree with Zach, actually. In the limited exposure I've had to her, I've always seen her... Actually, I had this exact same thought, Zach, before we started talking, that she was more closely aligned to, like, a Captain America.
Yeah.
But she is also smug, and she is also very self-confident in the way Tony is. And sure, she might throw out a joke or two, but she seems a little bit more, I guess, carefree in this movie in certain ways. Than I would have expected her to, based on the comic version.
Correct.
For me though, I don't know if I like her performance. Going into this, there was a lot of hate on the internet about Brie Larson never smiles. Why is Brie Larson always glowering? Why this? Why that? There was all that noise on the internet. I didn't really care about any of that. It's fine, whatever. Going into this, I was very pleasantly surprised, actually, at the start of the movie, how much personality she had. Not because I was expecting her not to have any, but it's kind of that Captain America thing we were talking about. Like, it felt nice. She was joking, she was quipping, but it felt very natural. It felt good to her. But as the movie went along, I feel like her acting with this character just got more and more stiff, like slowly, to where when you get to the end, it's not that she's wooden or anything, but it doesn't feel like the same character that we were seeing at the beginning of the movie.
Sure. I can understand that.
What do you think, Courtney? Do you think she, like, stays the same, or?
No, I think she changes because her character changes. Like, without spoiling stuff, like, she goes through major things, and I feel like she's just responding to those things.
Yeah, and that's another tough thing, is the way this movie is structured, I don't think it gives a lot of room for her to do something else than what she does in this movie. So I can forgive it. Like, it's not the worst thing in the world, but that just was something that caught me a little off guard.
Yeah, and I would say some of the stuff that we're talking about too is it's a little nitpicky. I mean, the movie's great, and it speaks for itself too. I don't know if you were going to touch on how well it's done, box office.
Yeah, so this movie has done super, super well.
Super well.
We're recording this on Monday, so it's only been out for, 4 days, including Thursday. It's made $456 million. I saw that it's tracking for over $1 billion.
Yes.
It had a budget of $152 million. So this is doing, right? This is doing very, very well. It will probably, I would imagine, be comparable to Black Panther's numbers when it's all said and done, which does make sense. Black Panther was the first African-led superhero movie from Marvel. This is the first female-led superhero movie from Marvel. So on those terms, it's very comparable.
Yes.
All right. Do we want to kind of give our general thoughts and then move into spoilers?
Yes.
Works for me.
Or do we want to save our general thoughts for the end?
Oh, I don't care. I'm just ready for spoilers.
I say move to spoilers. Because I think a lot of our general thoughts will come out of that.
Right. Okay. All right, guys. So this is spoilers. I was about to say, so Zach, would you say go see this movie? But you just told me not to do that.
So biggest spoilers. Let's just start from the beginning. Stan Lee. I don't know what would you call it. Homage.
It's a tribute.
Yeah. So they have the Marvel logo, but then it's just all of Stan Lee's appearances,
Cameos.
Yes, his cameos, and then of course his cameo in this, where he is reading. I don't know if you caught this. He is reading the script from Kevin Smith's shoot. What's the movie?
Mallrats.
Yes,
Mallrats.
Yes, Mallrats.
Yes, I totally caught that because I've seen Mallrats and I really like Mallrats. So yeah, that was something that was really cool. To be completely honest, I was a little disappointed by this tribute at the beginning because I had read before going into the movie that there was a tribute and that people were crying over it and all this stuff. So I was going in actually expecting more of a 5-minute documentary on him or something. And
sure.
when it was just the logo, like that's awesome. That's very cool. I'm glad they did it. It just wasn't what I was expecting.
Mm-hmm. I was expecting a little bit more. Not that the logo didn't touch you in a way,
Right?
But you had given me the warning. People were crying, so I was expecting it. And I mean, it might have gotten the pouty lip feeling of aw, Stan, but not something that was going to make me cry.
Sure. Well, and as somebody who I wasn't expecting this, so I was like, that's a really neat tribute.
Mm-hmm.
So I enjoyed it because it really caught me off guard.
Yeah, I think going in, if I hadn't have heard, it would have been a little bit more touching.
A little bit more, yeah.
Yeah, because when you hear people say, "Oh, they did a tribute at the beginning," it feels like it's going to be more substantial, But
yes, yep.
All right, probably one of the next biggest reveals, the scrolls. Let's talk about the scrolls in this movie.
Oh,
I was going in, I think, everyone else expecting Secret Invasion style scrolls. Scrolls are evil. Scrolls are bad. They're the enemy.
Take over the world.
Exactly. And while the first half of this movie wants you to think that, turns out they're not the villains.
No, they are not.
Yeah, the third act kind of flips that. They're the villains for the first two acts, and then you find out, well, actually, it's the Kree who are the villains, and the Skrulls are just a scattered race of people trying to survive. Mm-hmm. Man, I don't. So okay. As far as a storytelling surprise, this definitely, I did not see this one, huge curveball. I did not see that one coming. It was fun. It's fine for the MCU, but again, we both come from a background in comics, right? In the comics, the Skrulls have always been, I was trying to think back, is there a comic that paints them in this type of light? And as far as I can think about, no, because they impersonate superheroes to try to take over the world. They could be cannon fodder to Avengers, but they're evil, right? They're just an evil race of aliens.
You're correct and you're not correct. Traditionally, say from the 90s back, they were straight villains. But since the 90s, they actually have had comics that paint them in a more sympathetic light. There's actually a Silver Surfer comic. It's a Infinity comic, which means it's digital only. But where he goes to save them, and they are actually painted in very much the same way as this, actually. Very sympathetic. Their world is being invaded. And what you get from that comic, which I hadn't really seen before that, but you have gotten hints about it, is the Skrulls are an entire race, but there are different sects of Skrulls, if you will. There's the warrior sect of Skrulls. There's the regular people, like you and me type Skrulls. And so what I think we're meant to believe in the comics is that the militaristic ones, the ones that are out there fighting, those are the evil ones. The ones staying at home, the regular housewives, the regular, people going to work. It's funny to hear talk about Skrulls, but that's how they're portrayed in that comic. Those are not necessarily evil, but you're right. That's not, when you look at the Skrulls in the history of Marvel, that's not really what you think of.
Yeah, that's fair. I actually asked you this question when we were leaving the movie theater because I was shocked that they had good Skrulls because I had always seen them portrayed as evil, and I was like, is this something normal? And you're like, actually, it's something fairly recent. So, Zach, don't feel bad. I was in the same boat.
Well, see, I mean, I do know that there have been some interpretations of that, but I mean, it's recent. You look at just Skrull, like their portrayal in comics, just overall, and I would say yes, it's recent. Yeah, there's some comics that portray them in a positive light, but that's definitely an outlier to kind of how they're used story-wise in the majority of other comics. So that definitely caught me off guard, not only story-wise, but also as I was leaving the theater, I'm like, dang it. I promised, I bet on our podcast that for sure the next Avengers is going to be, like Secret Invasion. I was like 100% for sure this is not going to be the next story arc. After this movie, 100% sure this is not going to be the next story arc. I mean, they can maybe do like Avengers versus X-Men and then like Avengers 9, 10, 11 or like 10, 11, 12 do it a Secret Invasion. Like maybe the Skrulls have come back and now they're evil and there's another, but like I feel like this movie has wiped the possibility of that being that coming to the big screen. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I disagree, actually. I actually read an interview with Kevin Feige who basically said that, Skrulls are just like people. Some of them are bad, some of them are good. And the way he was saying it was being very diplomatic, insofar that the door is basically left open. This movie takes place in the 90s, and we see a very small group of Skrulls who are sympathetic. Like I said, that doesn't mean they all are, and that leaves another 20, 25 years for something to happen to make them more militaristic and want to invade Earth. So I don't think that the way they're portrayed here means that won't ever happen. I think that it's an interesting move, and to be honest, I actually like this turn because for most of the movie, I was frustrated with Talos, Ben Mendelsohn's character, because I thought that he wasn't villainous enough. He was too jokey. He was too fun. And I was like, this just isn't gelling. And then when they revealed it and you found out the whole story, I thought, oh, that makes sense. I actually like this a lot better now.
Yeah, that was the other thing that kind of caught me off guard was like the humor by the Skrulls. Like the one part where it's like the engineer, your chief scientist or whatever, chief engineer.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, oh, I don't know. They're shaking his head. Like those were like, I laughed out loud. Those were funny. But again, going back in the comics, I couldn't remember a time where Skrulls have actually used humor versus like, oh, we're going to initiate this plan and kill people.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right.
Yeah.
So a very different iteration. It was unique to this movie. I did like it, but it definitely threw me off guard for what I was expecting. And I'm a little saddened because I would really like to see those Skrulls. And I'm hopeful that down the line we will see those, but I believe it's going to be a lot later than I originally predicted.
Okay.
That may be true.
Yeah, I could see that. Courtney, do you have anything else to say on the Skrulls?
An interesting Easter egg. Talos, is that how you say it?
Mm-hmm.
He actually, in the comics, he cannot transform. He's a Skrull that cannot transform into anything, and he stays in his Skrull form. And so, he kind of takes a different role in the comics. That kind of learned about that today.
Oh, interesting.
I did not know that.
Ha This is the moment.
Enjoy this moment. While
This
it lasts.
is a moment. That was like the most stock laugh I think I've ever heard. Oh, man.
Now that it's recorded, you need to sell it on stock.
Right.
Stockaudio.com.
Right.
$20 a pop. Here we go.
All right, let's move on to Marvel. That big twist. Zach, you want to take that?
Marvel.
Hello.
Yeah. Marvel.
That she's a scroll. There, I did it for you.
What? No, so Marvel, it kind of mirrors the comics, honestly, Caleb, to what you were talking about, except he's a she in the movie, and she has been living on Earth, and she is trying to help out the Skrulls using the Tesseract, and this is where it gets a little strange, because then she has the power of the Tesseract, but then just no. Yes, sorry. Doge corrected me.
Maybe we should bring the dog around sooner, more often.
Kimber, no. So she's using the power. I think she needs to go out. Caleb, take this.
Okay, cool. So we find out towards the end of the movie that Annette Bening, who is Dr. Wendy Lawson, who is also the person that is teased. Wow, that was really high pitched. I hope that comes out when I edit this.
Probably not.
Probably not. I'm sorry if that just made your ears bleed. It's teased throughout this whole movie who this person is. You see this person as the Supreme Intelligence, because actually we haven't even talked about it. The Supreme Intelligence in this movie is different. You appear as someone that the Supreme Intelligence appears as someone who is close to you. Important to you. So Captain Marvel keeps seeing this person. She doesn't know who she is because she doesn't have her memory. And we find out that she is Marvel towards the end of the movie, who is working on basically a light speed engine so that you can go hyperspeed through space. Because I guess they don't have that yet.
That's fair. It is the 90s.
It is the 90s. So she is...
Yeah, and... sorry, I was going to say, and the Supreme Intelligence in the comics has usually been like it's a floating green head.
Yes.
Usually with multiple eyes. I mean, it sometimes not, but
think of
usually the hair that are like tentacles, and it's usually floating in some type of liquid.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's, I mean, it's all different.
Think of Zordon from Power Rangers.
Yeah.
But green.
Yes.
And massive.
Yeah, so it's always like super big.
Yeah. So this is a very different interpretation of it. It makes a little bit more sense from the standpoint of AI and how it would meld with your brain. It also doesn't make sense in other ways, but hey, all the power to him.
That's right.
But so I said this is Wendy Lawson. In the comics, Marvel is Walter Lawson. So they've basically kept the same type of name, just switched it around a little bit. And yeah, Zach, you're exactly right. The ship that she was working on explodes, kind of like the thing that happens in the comics with Marvel protecting. I almost said Brie Larson. Too many names.
I know.
Carol Danvers.
Carol.
Yes.
And the Tesseract is actually what kind of gives them power. So it does a similar thing. It makes her half Kree because Marvel is there, and also it imbues powers to her, which, as I was telling Courtney, makes a whole lot of sense, considering it has done this in the past with Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch.
Now, wait. So you said it makes her half Kree. I would disagree there. So when she gets knocked down, when she gets up, does she have blue blood? Like, is she bleeding? Carol Danvers?
I know why she has blue blood. She has blue blood because she receives a transfusion from a
That's
Kree.
right. Okay.
Yeah,
that's right.
So she receives a transfusion. So she is human, although that's I believe in the comics it's been retconned before where it's like she actually was a Kree, and then she still was a Kree, and stuff like that. But I think in this one she was a human, she received transfusion, so now she's half and half, which in this in that kind of reveal as well, you find out that Jude Law's character is evil. He's the real villain here. Him
also,
and
go ahead.
Cats. Him and Cats.
Sorry. Also, the Tesseract just gives the power to the ship. It's not actually what gets blown up and is on the plane that they are taking up, because that's actually being held in her laboratory.
Yeah, her secret lab. Yeah, the Tesseract is the power source. The thing that gets blown up is the actual engine.
Yeah.
So
sorry, go ahead.
it's very similar to how we've seen the Tesseract used in the past.
Right.
Yes, so that's how I said it connects to Age of Ultron, right? So the Tesseract was used to give Wanda and
okay.
What's his face, Maximoff, their powers, right? And so it's just the same. So to me, it made a lot of sense. It's like, oh, it's the same thing. It gave her powers, and technically, I believe, was it in Age of Ultron or Civil War where the Scarlet Witch was told that she was one of the most powerful Avenger, or like she was told that she had a lot of power. So that makes sense that like, okay, Captain Marvel's got like extreme power through the Tesseract. It does tie up a lot of loose ends. Like, how did Nick Fury get the Tesseract? We now know that. But it also still leaves
he would have already had it.
Well, yeah, but it like, how did he? Right? So in the Avengers, him and Shield they have it, but we never understand like how they got it.
Yeah, we do. At the end of Captain America, Howard Stark fishes it out of the ocean, and Howard Stark goes on to found Shield. So Shield would have had it.
He's right.
But then how did it get lost again?
So this is actually...
I see what you're saying.
It's because she works for Pegasus.
So it gets specifically put in the hands of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's through this transaction that gets specifically put in the hands of Fury, is what I'm trying to...
No. So S.H.I.E.L.D. has it. S.H.I.E.L.D. has a group called Pegasus that's doing...
Pegasus is a project.
Is a project
no, I get
that they're...
No. Yep.
Yeah.
No, I get it. I'm saying it's through... Like, yes, you could have just made the logical jump that because S.H.I.E.L.D. has it, like... Nick Fury will have
has it.
But I'm saying this is specifically makes out the outline that there is the Avengers Initiative, and this is why Nick Fury is the one who, in the opening scene of the Avengers, takes Bruce Banner, like walks and or whoever I think it's Bruce Banner, right? No, who is it? I can't remember who it is. Whatever. He like has the Tesseract and he talks all about it, right? So it's like there's a reason that Nick Fury is like on top of this.
Yeah, I mean, I always assumed it was because he was the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., and you would know about those things if you're the director.
That's right.
I quit. I'm done.
But yes, we do see that here. One thing I thought was really cool is you touched on, Courtney, Project Pegasus is the same project we see in the Avengers at the beginning. That whole thing that they're doing with the Tesseract is all Project Pegasus.
Oh, that's so cool.
You can actually see it on the signs. You see the same things. Project Pegasus, joint venture between NASA and the U.S. Air Force. So that's why it's at an Air Force base in this movie. So it all kind of ties back together, which is really cool. And wow, that was really loud and hurt my ears.
It's not that bad.
It's high-pitched.
Yeah?
Oh, man.
Okay.
Let's see. I really enjoyed everything in this movie that linked back to the movies we've already seen, like Project Pegasus, like the Tesseract, like the Avengers Initiative, which gets its name from Carol Danvers' her jet.
Yes.
Which I guess is called the Avenger.
It is. It says on the side.
Yep. So, and there's a couple other things. Like, I like the returning characters, like I've said. I don't want to keep saying the same things.
No, I will agree. I loved the tie-ins. It made it extra special. I loved how they came up with the name. It was so clever. And, just, like, all those little moments, it made it feel like it's been a part of the Marvel family, even though it's brand new to Marvel. Yeah.
Now, I do have some complaints.
That's fair.
So, I didn't love this movie. I actually have some problems with this movie. And probably the biggest one is the whole beginning part of this movie, like the first 30 or 40 minutes, feel very strange, very stiff, where it feels like Marvel said we've got 30 years of history, 40, 50, however many years it is. We've got to cram it down into the first 40 minutes of this movie, and we have to hit all the major points. And it felt like there was so much going on, and it was going on so quickly that you never got to absorb everything and feel what was going on and kind of let the movie breathe a little bit in that first part. And even going so far as a lot of the sets, I know I talked to you about this, Courtney, The sets at the beginning all feel very small. They feel like they're actually in a set, which is surprising considering the first 40 minutes, the settings are very similar to settings we get in Guardians, and all the settings in Guardians feel very open. They feel very
back, baby.
large. I was in the middle of a thought.
Keep going. I just got locked outside of the house, so that was
Awesome. Awesome. You heard it here first. Zach. Little guy that gets locked out of his house.
It's not his house.
I couldn't find my way in.
So I was comparing the beginning of this movie to Guardians and saying that this movie feels very small at the beginning. It feels like you're on a lot of sets. Nothing ever feels large or expansive. But in Guardians, you're in a lot of the same type of places, and it does feel big. It feels like It's a whole world. It feels very open. And I have issues with this movie because even when we get to our first planet, it's just covered in smoke and dust. And it feels like that's because they didn't have the budget to actually do a proper world. And it's not until we get to Earth and you're out in the fields that this movie feels like it's open at all. And to be honest, those scenes, there aren't very many of them. And so a lot of this movie feels very small. The whole beginning feels very rushed. And that I had some big issues. Once she teams up with Nick Fury, that aspect of it gets better. Mm-hmm. It breathes a lot more. There's enough humor and not dead time, but open time so that everything feels right. Even to the point where I read comics. I was there with Courtney and with Chris from the CNC Power Hour. All of us read comics. Chris has read more than any of us. And we were all having issues keeping up with the names of things in the first part of the movie because there were so many. And I don't think that a general audience member is going to be able to keep up.
That's fair.
Yeah, I agree with Courtney. I think that's fair. Yes. Go for it.
No, I was going to open it up.
I was going to say, yeah. I mean, you're right. It felt it felt smaller. And as I'm thinking, like walking through the movie, I also thought like with this small space though, that's where they bring in the scrolls to do very, different stuff. So like when Ben Mendelsohn's character turned into the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. at that time, I'm like, oh, okay, that's why that guy's like evil later on. But then he just. It's like, oh, okay, never mind. Like that's not. So I was like, okay, this small field, it fits this because this isn't going to be one of those intergalactic Guardians of the Galaxy movies. This is going to be more of a who's the traitor? Let's find out Captain Marvel's secret, and they do some of that, but not to the extent of what I thought they were going to do. So I think that's kind of what maybe would have helped if they'd gone in that direction.
This kind of came to me, but I feel like I think it's being portrayed on a smaller scale because essentially it would be like the first, minus Captain America during World War II, sorry. Like, this is the first modern day superhero, technically, for the Marvel Universe, if you put it in chronological order of like when it would happen in time. So it makes sense that her stuff is a little bit smaller. Because, especially, like, when she gets to Earth, because it's, like, their first time really dealing with something on that scale, if that makes sense.
I think you're trying to say that they're kind of being meta about it and saying that this is the first chronological superhero outside of, like, a Captain America, and so everything's going to feel smaller, and they're trying to copy that, but I don't think that's what they're trying to do.
Well, we could say that's what they're trying to do and give them some credit.
All right. Some other things that I just remembered that I really enjoyed. I know I keep saying the callbacks I really like, but things as small as we didn't even talk about the Kree have their traditional Kree armor in this movie with the fin on the top of the head, which is something from the comics that we didn't get in Guardians. One thing that was really cool was, I don't remember her name, but the, I think she's blue. The blue girl on the Star Force team with the rifle, the sniper, that moves through people very similarly to Yondu's arrow.
Yeah.
Which is a nice callback. The Accuser's ships are all like proto versions of Ronan's ship in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Mhm.
They all have that same like curvature to them, which is very nice continuity.
Yeah, it really was. They did a really good job with that.
All right, so I've said my complaints. Do you guys have any complaints?
Zach, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, other than what I talked about with the scrolls and stuff like that. Now, have you guys talked? I know. Are you doing like general thoughts right now, or are we still in the?
Whatever you want to talk about. I've just kind of segued into that because I wasn't sure what we were talking about next.
What's that? What's next? No, other than the scrolls, I thought it was a good movie. I liked it. I will say one kind of spoiler thing we didn't really talk about was the Flurkin.
Oh yeah, the cat.
Right, the cat.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of the movie, right, it's there. There's Nick Fury, and he gets in a car crash, and you think that they do an eye fake out, right? Because he's like holding his eye, it's bleeding. You're like, oh, there he goes. But then you're like, he's totally fine. And so at the end, he goes through his whole movie. He's like loving the cat, and then
Goose.
right, it's like it's an actual Flurkin, and so it plays a role into that. And then he's holding it and scratches his eye. And it's a humorous moment, right? When he's like, oh, it's just a scratch. And Ben Mendelsohn's character like shakes his head again. Like, no, this is bad. So I thought that was interesting. It was because it was joked about on the internet, right? Like, I don't know if you followed it at all. Like, oh, Nick Fury's going to lose his eye because of a cat, and everybody laughed. Like, no, that's actually literally what happened. Like, he lost his eye because of a cat. I thought that was kind of interesting. I told Blaine, I'm like, oh, it doesn't really fit into what he says. And he's like, later on in the movie, he's like, yes, he does. And in the Winter Soldier,
he fully trusts that cat.
Yes, he's like, the last time I trusted something, like I lost an eye. Well, it was the cat. He loved that cat. He trusted it. That was the last time he trusted something was the cat. So, I think it really fits. It's funny. I also think I wish this would have happened. It doesn't, but they set it up to when they're talking about the cat, and then I think one of them asks the scroll, like, well, have you ever turned into a cat, or can you transform into animals? And it doesn't really say anything.
The filing cabinet.
Yeah, the filing cabinet, right? Well, scrolls actually can. So in one of the first appearances of the scrolls, I'm trying to think back in Fantastic Four number IDK, I think they
My BFF Jill?
Reed Richards, I think, transforms them into cows. Like they're cows, which is later used as a storyline, like these cows get slaughtered and used for hamburgers, but they're scrolls, so it causes like mad cow disease, right? Like back in like the
whoa,
the 70s,
oh my
yeah.
goodness,
yeah, right. So, but that's later. That's like way later. But like their first appearance, like they do transform into cows, so they can transform into animals. They have in the past for sure, and I thought that would have been really interesting if they had done that. So, anyways, my major complaint then is some of the scrolls and the twists. I thought this was a good movie. Other than Ant-Man and the Wasp, I've probably seen the last like 8 Marvel movies at least twice to 3 times in the theaters. This one I probably will just see the once. But you know what? All in all, good movie. I think you should go see it. It definitely give credit where credit's due. I'm just really excited to see how Captain Marvel plays into Avengers Endgame.
Yeah, I want to go back to the cat for a second. I really don't like this being the reason he lost his eye.
I knew you wouldn't. I know. I was like, oh, okay. Like, the critical eye of Leb is not going to like this.
That's right. It's fun. It is funny. Like, I will give you that. It's funny. But this is no different than what a lot of people are complaining about what they did with Star Wars, where they hyped up Rey's parentage or Snoke, and then they just didn't do anything with it, and they made a joke out of it. That's exactly what they did here, and I don't know why people are saying it's fine. Probably because it's not as big of a deal. It's not like a big story beat. I don't know. It feels like because they've played it up so much, because he was like, last time I trusted someone, I lost an eye. It just doesn't feel right. I thought what was going to happen when the cat scratched his eye was that's how he gets the claw marks on his eye, but he didn't actually lose his eye yet. And I would have liked that better, because it's like, oh, it's funny, because we all thought like it was a big deal when the cat actually scratched his eye and he actually loses it some other way. But that's really all I have to say about that.
I mean, technically, it could be that, because you don't actually see what's underneath. And
it's true.
Even though at the end they bring out this box of eyeballs, there's a chance.
That's true. That's very true.
And I thought about that. So if they wanted to backpedal, they could, but I don't think they will.
Probably not. The cat is in the comics, but it is not named Goose. His name is Chewie.
Yep.
And Goose is actually named after a character off of Top Gun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Chewie, obviously referring to Chewbacca.
That's right.
They changed it for this movie because I don't remember if it was Kevin Feige or someone else on the movie basically said, when this was done in the comics, Star Wars wasn't around, and so Chewie was kind of like a throwback. Now, in the world we live in, Star Wars is a big thing again.
Yeah.
And so they kind of wanted it to be more of that throwback style, which is why they picked Top Gun, which also thematically fits with this movie.
Right, especially with her being in the Air Force and stuff like that.
Exactly. All right. Does anybody, Courtney, you still got your closing remarks. Anybody have anything else to say?
I have some more Easter eggs.
Go for it.
Carol Danvers' best friend, her daughter, Lieutenant Trouble, as she's nicknamed in the movie. In the comics, she later becomes Captain Marvel in a series.
Oh, really?
Yep, she gets powers and goes off and does similar things.
Cool.
She does, right? I think it's she's not born with them, right? Like she gets...
No, she gets them. I don't know how. Yeah. I'm trying to think if there was anything else. So it talked about the cat.
Meow.
That's right.
Meow, 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 meow.
How does...
Meow, 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 meow.
How does the Doge feel about the cat?
Kimber.
He's very angry.
How do you feel about cats? She's just staring into the void.
Very interesting.
Very staring into the blankness of the void. She doesn't let... Oh, here she is. Say something. She said she hates him with a passion.
That's fair. No, so for my closing remarks, I did enjoy the movie. I didn't love it as much as I thought I would or hoped I would. I really thought, or really hoped it would be this really just amazing movie. And it's a really good movie and it's got really great pieces to it, but it's not perfect. And I think the best way I kind of described it to people who were asking, it's like if you were to compare it to Wonder Woman, which is really the only other strong female superhero character that has a movie that's out there right now, like I feel like Wonder Woman did a better job inspiring women and superheroes, female superheroes and stuff like that. But Captain Marvel's story in the movie is better. Like, they did a better job telling the story, but Captain Marvel doesn't have as many inspirational moments as, like, Wonder Woman did. But there are some. Like, I think that she'll continue to grow and inspire people, especially in Endgame. Like, I think she's going to be a heavy, important piece to that movie, and I'm really excited about that. Some people are not happy about it. But I want her to have a big piece to it because, like, she's secretly been there this whole time. Like, she deserves to have her place kind of thing. But, yeah.
So, actually, before we end, we need to talk about the stinger. What did you guys think about the mid-credit scene?
I thought it was great. It harkened back to the shoot, what was the movie before Civil War?
Right? I thought the same thing. I don't remember.
I don't remember, right? But it wasn't Thor Ragnarok. I can't remember. But it harkened back to that, right? Because it was like, it was an actual scene in the movie, or in the next upcoming movie. And so, like, I'm definitely looking forward to that. I will say this, I'm trying to avoid spoilers, obviously, for Avengers Endgame, but I did read there was apparently some footage that was shown to execs that leaked, and just the description of it, and it basically extends that scene a little bit. Sounds epic.
Okay, because I wasn't sure. I was pretty sure that this was a scene from Endgame because just the way it felt, but I didn't know that for sure, so it's good to know that it actually is.
Oh, I thought it was.
Well, most of them aren't, is why I was saying.
Yeah. Because it was a good little taste of what we'll get in a month.
Mm-hmm. Did you guys notice her costume was different?
Yeah, her hair's longer.
The actual costume is like her shoulders have like gold on them. It's kind of hard to tell. You'd have to probably look up a picture of it, but it's a little bit different. Honestly, I kind of prefer the one that she had in this movie, but we don't get a full shot of the other one.
You say that all the time.
Yeah, I agree with Courtney. You're a Debbie Downer, Caleb. You never like anything in your life.
Oh boy. Well, you're not going to like what I have to say.
Oh no, but I will mention this that in that extended clip, we do get a reason why Captain Marvel hasn't been back, right? Like why has it been this long? And Captain Marvel never came. Like, there's plenty of times I feel like you could have used Captain Marvel, but again, going back to kind of Courtney's like Easter
I know
egg.
what he's talking about.
This does tie though back into, remember
this.
when Nick Fury was talking to the World Council, and he was like, I do have. Yeah, what did he say? He said he's like, I do have something, and they're like, no, let's not do that.
No.
But it basically people, it's like a plan. It's like the Avengers, but it's also like a big hand. It's something, and people think it was alluding to Captain Marvel, which obviously at the time it wasn't, but they can retcon that.
Well, going back to the cat and being jokes, I thought it would be really funny if the reason he didn't call her in the past is because he forgot to charge the pager and it was dead every time he wanted to use it.
It didn't work.
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you if you want. It's nothing big.
Yeah, you can tell us, guys, if you really don't want to hear, jump ahead 2 minutes or so.
Yeah, and again, take this with a grain of salt. I think this is accurate, but basically, she's like, "You're not the only world that needs help. There's a lot of I think the statement goes, there's a lot of other worlds out there that need help that don't have superhumans.
So that don't have a team of Avengers.
Yes. So they don't have a team of Avengers. You're not high on the priority list because there's like millions of other worlds that just have them, and that's it. And so she's been bouncing all over and hasn't just come back to Earth. And then she also hasn't been called. So that's why.
That makes sense.
Yes.
All right, guys.
Yep.
So final thoughts and how you would rate this movie. Why don't you start, Zach?
Are we supposed to put this on like the rating scale? Like where it lands in
not
the
exactly,
movies?
but yeah, generally. Well, I think Zach dropped out for a second. So let's go with Courtney.
Oh no, I'm not ready. Okay. So I would say that this would be above Ant-Man and the Wasp. It would be above Doctor Strange, like any of those. It definitely surpasses those in my opinion. It's not the best. But I feel like it would be like in my list, and I actually have a list, I just don't have it with me. In my list of Marvel movies, it would probably be in the mid-range, above some of those other movies, like Thor: The Dark World, that's like at the bottom. Hulk, yeah. So she does really good for that.
Welcome back.
Thanks. I may or may not have been singing the entire time. You may not edit that in.
I might.
For any reasons. Unless people want to hear my lustrous voice. Yeah, so you guys cut out, and I was like, this is a really long pause. So I just decided to jump to the next segment. So I'm like, this is that, and what is this?
It's all good. I threw the mic to you, and you weren't there, so Courtney's got it now.
No, I'm always here. Unless internet cuts out, then I'm not. Then I'm gone.
All right, Courtney, why don't you finish up?
No, so if I were to rank this movie, it would be in the middle of my Marvel listing, above some of those others that I said. So yeah. Pretty good. I enjoyed it. I want to see it again. I hope to see it again in the movie theater.
Okay. So for me,
Courtney, assert your dominance. Look to Caleb and say, Caleb, we are seeing it again in the movie theater.
Caleb, we are seeing it in the movie theater again this weekend.
Dang,
Bam.
son. You just got owned.
See, I say if she wants to see it, go see it. But as I was about to say, I do not want to see this again in the theater.
No, he doesn't.
For me, this is a very middle-of-the-road film. I've actually kind of been disappointed by the last two Marvel movies that have come out, both Ant-Man and the Wasp and this one. I was expecting more, and both of them have let me down. I like this one much more than Ant-Man and the Wasp, I can tell you, but I thought based on the trailers and everything I was hearing, it was going to be really good, and it's just average for me. I think that there is maybe some acting issues from Brie Larson. I think there's definitely pacing and tone issues at the beginning of the movie. I think that in Marvel's effort to make this a very female-focused film, they might have sacrificed some talent or ways of doing things that maybe would have better serviced the film. I think that having a movie that's very female-focused and that pushes that realm of things is great. But I think that at the end of the day, you want to make a great movie, and whatever you're going to do to make that great movie, make the good movie. So for me, this is kind of more like a Doctor Strange level for me, which out of all of my movies is somewhere around 11 or 12 in my rankings of all MCU movies. So very middle of the road.
Sure.
I don't mind to watch this again at some point, but I really don't want to go back to the theater and see it. I'm hoping that I like Brie a little bit better in Endgame, because I think that part of the reason I might not like her performance as much in this one is the directors. And I think under different directors, she might be better. So the Russo brothers have a history of being the best directors for any of the Marvel characters. So I'm very curious what they do with it.
I just want to add, I really liked her as an actress, and I thought she did a good job. Okay,
good.
Nice, yeah. I would say I kind of in between you two. I I stated I probably won't see it again. I might. It was a good, solid movie, good action flick. I did like it better than Wonder Woman. Probably. Yeah, it was about on the same page. But it was good. It was really good. It had some twists, some turns, made me laugh. Didn't really like how they used the scrolls, but that's okay. That's more me coming from comics versus like I find it unique how they did it in the MCU, and I'm on board with that. Where does this line up though? When I look at my list, 1 to now all the way from 1 Infinity War to 21 Iron Man 3, including Captain Marvel. This actually is number 14, so a little bit lower than the middle of the pack now. This I put it below, so I put Ant-Man and the Wasp at 10. Remember that was like middle of the pack. And then right below that would be Ant-Man, Captain America, and Doctor Strange, and then fits in Captain Marvel. So I'd rather watch probably those movies above Captain Marvel, but Captain Marvel is sitting above some of the Thor movies, Age of Ultron, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. So I definitely see this over those as well. So you know what? Good movie. Go see it. 1 thumbs up. I don't like cats. The end.
Meow.
All right, guys. Well, that was that, and this is this. It's time for What You've Been Up To. So let's throw it to the newbie here. Courtney, what have you been up to?
I'm not a newbie. I've been on several episodes.
If you count the number of episodes we've all been on, you have the fewest.
Mm-hmm. I have been watching Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. After seeing how great it was and hearing about it, I decided to check it out. I believe I'm on episode 4. I've been listening to some...
Well, wait. Oh. Do you like Full Metal?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I have enjoyed it. I really have enjoyed it, actually. I would definitely recommend it. I'm trying to think of what else I've done. I've been listening to several other podcasts, but I know.
Caleb, that's called infidelity by your wife.
They're true crime podcasts.
I like true crime, so I've been listening to several true crime podcasts. Watched some episodes of The Big Bang Theory recently.
Nice.
What have I been doing?
I don't know. Sims. You've been playing a lot of Sims.
Oh yeah, I started playing Sims again. Like Sims 4. It's been fun. That's about it. Yeah. Zach,
right.
What about you? What have you been up to?
Yeah, are you alive? Can you even talk?
Okay, well, other than dying and getting locked out of my house and dealing with a dog and watching as my wife gallivants across Europe and being a sad, despicable human being, what else have I been up to?
Absolutely nothing.
No, so the other day I actually watched a movie, and did you know that Avengers was not the first time that Robert Downey Jr. and Mark Ruffalo were acting together?
I did.
I might have.
I feel like we talked about it in one of our podcasts. We probably have by now. But so I don't know if this is their first movie together. I'm assuming it is, because I just feel like you're not going to get both those actors in the same movie a lot. And that is the movie Zodiac. So the movie is about, it's a thriller.
It's good.
And the movie is about the Zodiac killer. So the crimes that happened in California back in 1960s, 70s.
70s.
Yep. Had it between like 1969 and 1977. And super interesting. So it has Robert Downey Jr., Mark Ruffalo, and Jake Gyllenhaal are kind of the top three in it as well. So it's really, really interesting take on those kind of that crime and the, it's historical. So it's, if you're ever interested about it, definitely watch it. It is an older movie. Not super old. I don't remember when it was released. But it's about 2 hours.
I think it's in the 90s.
90s, I was going to say. Probably 90s. I think it was 2.5 hours. Really good, though. And it's streaming on Netflix North America at this
That's
moment.
right.
So,
and I'll actually throw this out because one of the true crime podcasts I've been listening to is actually on the Zodiac Killer.
Nice. Yeah, so it's really good.
Yeah. Yes.
Zodiac is much newer than that. It's from 2007.
Well, that was very Southern.
well, y'all are wrong. Okay, so it's from 2007. But yeah, good movie. That's mainly what I've been recently been up to.
Why aren't you gallivanting across Europe again?
'Cause work.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Are you saying your lady doesn't work?
I mean,
are
she
y'all
works
on a
lot,
break or something?
But as a teacher, you also get a good chunk of time off.
Let me tell you, man, I know all about that. While I have to get up early and go to
I know
work.
what you're talking about. Don't pull my cord, Doge. Don't do that. As far as spring breaks go and summers go. So she is blessed, #blessed, with some time off that works well for traveling.
Y'all are already on spring break?
We are. I mean, with the snow we're getting, should have been a month earlier.
It's a lot of spring.
But that was me. And what is this?
Caleb, what have you been up to?
So I've been up to a couple things. I finally finished Brotherhood, Full Metal Brotherhood, and it was really good. The ending did get a little bit weird, but then it circled back around.
Wait. Like anime weird, or just like storytelling weird?
Weird compared to what the rest of the series had been doing.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, like nothing super crazy, but it went a little farther than I thought it would. But in the last 2 or 3 episodes, that is also kind of brought back, and things are explained a little bit more. So even though it's weird, it does make sense. I think it's a good ending. I think that it is very similar to Death Note in that the first half feels very different, or somewhat different from the second half. But I would still recommend it. It's actually 65 episodes. I kept saying it was 60. I was very sad when I hit 60 and realized there were still 5 episodes left. But yeah, definitely good. Go check it out. And then I've also been playing 2 other video games. There's a free game on the PS Store this month called The Witness, which is a puzzle game similar to the Talos Principle, if you know what that is, or if you know Portal. It's kind of that same type of game. This one's really good. I wish it had more of a story. It's really not story. It just drops you in, similar to the Talos Principle. But it's free and it's good. Check it out. And then I also started Persona 5, which I've had for a year or 2 now, just sitting on my shelf, and I've been waiting to play it because it's a 100-hour game, and I needed time to commit to it. I should not have started it already, but I didn't want to play what I had to play, which was Kingdom Hearts 3, because I just wasn't feeling it. So I started that. I only played about an hour of it, but I mean, it's good. Great, 99 more to go. Right? You got 99 problems. But Persona 5 is definitely one. Is not one of them. But yeah, that's pretty much all I've been up to. Trying to think. I read a couple chapters of the X-Men book I've been reading. That's very slow going. Maybe by December I'll finish it. It's a long way away. I know. Well,
I hope you read more than that. You've bought a lot of books lately.
I started it a long time ago. Yeah, well, my issue is I've got other books I want to read that I've bought, but I feel I have to finish that one.
You don't have
before I start reading another one. And
the Doge agrees. You don't have to.
Yeah, the Doge was like, Caleb, what are you doing? Nonsense.
Yeah, I really want to read that one about Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark that I got, but...
Do it.
We'll see. Anyway, that's all I've been up to.
Great.
Nice. Well... Yes.
Well?
Well? Yes.
Well.
All right, guys. We do want to say thank you to Taylor Poole for doing our awesome opening and closing music. You can find him at taylorpoolmusic.com. That's TaylorPoole music.com. And Zach says...
Yeah, that's fine. Ah, Doge! Stop! She just, tore my mic down. And the Doge, what is the Doge wants cuddles. And I say, when you're not listening to our podcast, check out CNC Power Hour. The most fun you'll have since you mowed the lawn.
And,
just kidding. Yeah. They stream video games, and are they still doing Kingdom Hearts?
How many times are you going to ask?
That.
I'm not even sure. They're doing stuff.
Okay.
We're not going to tell you until you check them out. Then you'll be surprised.
That's right. And be sure to check out our website. That's causewe'renerds.com.
They can't hear you, Courtney.
I don't care. I yell all day long.
CUZWERENERDS.com, probably. Maybe org.
It's .com.
.blog.
Did you say .org?
Yes. .org.
No, definitely not.
.nickelodeon.marvel.com.
If we were actually organized, this podcast would have been much smoother.
Oh, yeah? I
am here.
Agree.
Thanks for listening to 'Cause We're Nerds. Stay up to date with all the nerdy news and podcast drops by following us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also leave us comments and feedback at causewe'renerds@gmail.com. That's CUZWERENERDS@gmail.com. And as always, if you enjoy this podcast, we would love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. We'll see you next week, and as always, stay nerdy.
Yes, if you go back to that period where I was quiet, you will probably get something to throw into the end credits. An end credit stinger.
I'll do it.
No! Sorry, that's supposed to be Darth Vader. I'll try that again. No! Hello? Hello? Oh no. Hello? Hello? This is so sad. Zach is alone. He is alone by himself and nobody's here to hear him sing. I hope Caleb doesn't edit this in. He will most likely miss this, and he won't ever see this. And Zach's gonna sing to himself, and he's so lonely, and he's so sad. 'Cause his wife left him on a trip, and he's all alone, and he only has a dog to watch, and he got let out and he got let out of the office the other day as a...